Good evening. Welcome. I am really excited to be here tonight, and I would like to thank our nonprofit sponsors for helping organize this event. First of all, the Greater West Valley Lions Club, of which I am a member, and we do great work. I don't know if you're familiar with the Lions, but there are some brochures on the table here to your left. It's an organization that is, in fact, the largest civic organization in the world. We now have over 44,000 chapters, not members, chapters in 150 or more countries, mostly focused on vision care for those who can't provide for it themselves. But also we do some other events, such as a month ago we were here coordinating with Anthem Blue Cross, and we put together in less than a day over 50,000 meals packaged to be distributed to people who don't have enough to eat in Los Angeles County, many of whom are in the San Fernando Valley. So it's a fantastic organization that does a lot of good things in the community, always looking for more members, volunteers, and we have meetings every month right here in Woodland Hills on Thursday evenings. In fact, there's one going on right now. Some of our members will probably come in afterwards. So I wanted to mention that organization. Secondly, the West Valley Warner Center Chamber of Commerce is a sponsor of this. We're a member of that as well. And lastly, but not least, the Foundation for Senior Services. Now, this is an organization that I really want you to be aware of and make note of. The website address is foundationforseniorservices.org. And this organization, a nonprofit, I'm on the board of directors, we provide services to seniors in the community that can't provide it themselves. And resources through our senior specialist group. We have over 20 members of the community who specialize in anything from elder law to aging in place to figuring out how to downsize into a smaller home. 15 or 20 different people who will devote on a volunteer basis their time and energy to anybody who needs it to age successfully. So if you or someone you know has any needs in that regard, please follow up, go into that website and check it out. I am a long-term member or lived here in the Woodland Hills area on Calvert, right off Valley Circle. Raised by kids here. They both graduated from El Camino. My daughter, in fact, in her 3 years there, 2 of the years led the softball team to city championship and batted .507, won the LAUSD batting championship in her junior year. And my son was a baseball fanatic. And so I ended up coaching a lot here in the area at Sunrise Little League and West Hills Pony League. My background is as a professional athlete. I have a lot of fitness experience in the areas of, I'm certified with numerous certifications with the National Academy of Sports Medicine, but also with the Functional Aging Institute as a certified functional aging specialist. And so I really enjoy devoting time and energy to helping kids in the community not just learn the fundamentals of baseball, but all the life lessons that come along with sports that I learned for myself. Teamwork, and setting goals, overcoming adversity, all of these kinds of things that we've learned in our lives. Now, I have a new mission, and that is to help people my age, baby boomers and older, address the A word, aging, which lots of times is thought of in private, but isn't discussed so much publicly. We often have a tendency to think of the aging process as something that just happens to us. It's inevitable, we're at its mercy. But the truth is far from that, and science is proving that, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight. There is help, there is hope. It's not too late to change our physical being, our cognitive health. We'll be talking about specific ways to do that tonight. In fact, you likely saw one of these flyers, and the topics that are on it will address why gyms are obsolete, 7 secrets to not only stop but actually reverse the signs of aging, how your next doctor's visit could be the best you've ever had, how or why the medical community is headed toward a seismic shift, how to prevent loss of bone density and muscle mass as you age, and we have a special guest, Dr. Kenneth Howiak, who's going to be talking on bone health a little while, how we can train our brains to think and react more quickly. This is a fascinating area that's just being discovered in the realm of science. The single best anti-aging exercise. I'm also going to show you the single best anti-aging piece of exercise equipment. And 3 simple steps to reduce pain and prevent injuries. We'll have time for questions. Going to go quickly. There are bone density screenings. Some of you have already had. Dr. Ken will be staying afterwards, so if you'd like to have bone density screening, that would be great. Also, if you don't get it done tonight, we are going to have a wellness expo here on March 19th, so a week from this Saturday, right here in the same place. And we'll not only have bone density screenings, but 5 or 6 other preventive health screenings, as well as 4 talks, myself and Dr. Ken, plus 2 other speakers. We have a medical doctor and a nutritionist. And we'll have about 25 different community organizations with informational booths, so it's going to be a fantastic event. Make sure you pick up a flyer on that and spread the word. Now, I'm going to talk a lot about specific information tonight, actually give you a couple of ideas on specific workouts that you might do, but I must note that this is general information. It's like the old medical saying, prescription without diagnosis is malpractice. So I'm not specifically saying for you in your case to do these things, but they may apply. And because it's important to have what's best for you, we are going to offer in the next week or 2 at a different location a free fitness assessment where we'll be able to give you a baseline of where you stand now and specific recommendations that are exactly for you at no cost provided by the sponsors or organization. That's listed on this evaluation sheet. Did everybody get one of these, hopefully? We'd love to get your input on this. What are we doing well? What could we improve? Our mission is to be in the community and really active to spread the word on the aging process. I'm going to do my best to live up to my favorite quote, which is by Albert Einstein, who said, "If you can't say something simply, you don't know it well enough." He also said, however, everything should be made as simply as possible, but not simpler. Meaning some things have some inherent complexity. I'll do my best to minimize the jargon and the complex, but feel free to ask a question or ask for clarification. So we're going to talk about successful aging. The beginning point is knowing what you want. How do you want to age? Have you set goals? Have you created an action plan, or are you just sort of waiting for time to take its toll? So the first step is to set goals and then plan creatively to achieve them. And here's an example of how that can work. Story of a man who walks into a bank in New York City. He said to the banker, "I'd like to borrow some money." The banker looked at him and saw he was very shabbily dressed, had some old shorts and sneakers, old t-shirt that's kind of sweaty, and he really didn't think this was a very good credit risk. So he said, "Well, I'm sorry, sir, but I don't think that's possible." He said, "No, I only want to borrow $100 though, and just for 30 days. The banker just still didn't trust him. He said, "Well, that's fine, but here we require collateral regardless of the size of the loan, and obviously you don't have any, so why don't you be on your way?" The man said, "Oh no," and reached in one pocket and pulled out a card key. In another, pulled out his registration, his pink slip to his car, and he said, "Well, this is to my Rolls Royce. It's parked out front. How about I just leave that here? Is that good enough collateral?" Well, the banker checked it out, and it was. So he said, well, he didn't want to be bothered with such a small loan anyway. He said, "You know what, but you don't want to do that because here we have a minimum loan origination fee of $50, and certainly you don't want to spend $50 just to borrow $100 for a month." The man said, "No, that's okay, I'll accept those terms." So they did the deal. A month later, the man walks back in and he goes up to the banker and he puts the $100 down and the $50, and he collects his key and his pink slip and he turns to go. But this time he was dressed in a very expensive custom suit and polished shoes, and before he got to the door, the banker's curiosity overwhelmed him. And he said, "Excuse me, sir, but I'm sorry, but why would a man of your obvious means need to borrow $100 for 30 days? And the man said, "Well, that's simple. I was out running a month ago and I got a phone call. It was some friends of mine, and they said, 'You're not going to believe this, but a good friend of our, mutual friend of ours just canceled out on a trip. We're heading overseas. We're going to go to several countries. It's going to be fantastic. Why don't you come along?' And the man looked at his schedule. It's pretty light, had his secretary clear the rest, and he said, The only problem was the plane was leaving LaGuardia in 2 hours, and I didn't have time to drive home to Long Island, drop my car, and get back. And I couldn't think of a cheaper way to leave my car for a month in New York City than at your bank. Which just goes to show, if you know what you want and you plan creatively, you can a lot of times get it. So that's what we're going to focus on tonight. So, what are your goals? How do you want to age? Think of them in 3 categories. What do you need to do? Activities of daily living to stay independent, for example. What do you like to do? Maybe it's gardening, maybe it's some form of exercise, maybe it's playing on the floor with your grandkids. And what do you want to do? What are the things that you perhaps haven't done but would still enjoy doing? So with that in mind, let's throw some out. What are your goals? What would you like to do in this next few years of your life?
Not exactly that, but the mall used to have a walking club. And that was great. It was structured enough,
So walking.
Yeah.
Okay, we could put walking down.
But can you get another one going?
Oh, well, that's a good point. Let's make a note of that, and that's a great idea, a walking club. Yes?
Need to do. Funeral expenses, everything about when you get sick, you can't take care of it yourself.
Planning ahead. Okay, so planning ahead. Let's focus on physical. I should have clarified this. Sort of physical activities. What are the sort of physical activities?
Ballroom dance. Ballroom dance.
Ballroom dancing? Fabulous. Dancing. That's great. What else? What are some of your other goals? Travel. Okay. Tennis. Fantastic. You're going to hear from Dr. Ken in a little while tonight of why tennis is a phenomenal exercise. Financial. Okay, so stay independent. All right. What else? What are some of the things that you need to do, like to do, or want to do? Stay healthy. Okay. Anybody want more energy? That, by the sound of it, that's a yes? Okay. Being positive. Okay. And aging for a lot of people is accompanied by depression. Staying positive is very important. Mindset, we'll talk a little bit about that. As a matter of fact, just to touch on it now, there have been clinical studies that have proven now conclusively that exercise for those who have mild to moderate depression, not severe clinical depression, but mild to moderate, which is most people, exercise is just as or more effective than prescription drugs like Prozac and other antidepressants.
That holds true also for Alzheimer's.
Alzheimer's as well. There's been phenomenal, we'll talk about cognitive issues. There's fantastic evidence now that exercise can not only prevent, but even to some extent reverse Alzheimer's. Fantastic science discoveries now. Anybody else? One more thing. Pain. Okay, so what? Let's say reduce. Oh, brain. Actually, okay, yeah. So brain. Yeah. So brain health. Great. Let's do that. And well, I thought you said pain. Anybody here would like to feel a little better, maybe? Reduce pain. Okay. So we'll say manage pain. How's that? Play better bridge. Okay. We're out of room, but yeah, that will. Okay, good. That's a good one. Be more flexible. Okay, so, all right, we'll put bridge and flexibility. Okay. Very important. Great goals, and I'm sure others of you have more. So I would urge you to think about this because that is the starting point. What do you want? You got to know what you want in order to be able to plan to get there. Okay. So now, most of us know that exercise is good for us, but the first step in the process really of achieving our goals is changing our perception of aging, that it isn't just something that happens to us. George Burns said, you can't help getting older, but you don't have to get old. Remember George? Say goodnight, Gracie, the cigar and all, right? Right? What a positive message he had through the way he lived. Many people believe that we grow old and then slow down. But the truth is, we slow down and then grow old. And this is something that medicine is now starting to recognize. You may remember several years ago, the Arthritis Foundation had a campaign. Do you remember those billboards? And some of them had a pair of running shoes on them, for example, and the caption, which was the campaign slogan, exercise, movement is the best medicine. Moving is the best medicine, okay? The medical community is embracing that now. One of the speakers at the Wellness Expo in a week, Dr. Venus Ramos, medical doctor, came back last year from a medical conference whose theme was fitness, exercise is medicine. Exercise is medicine. This was a convention of doctors. Now that's something that's pretty dramatic for that body of professionals. In fact, Ronald Davis, medical doctor who's the president of the American Medical Association, said, if we had a pill that contained all the benefits of exercise, it would be the most widely prescribed drug in the world. This is something from the president of the American Medical Association. So this is a radical shift. And part of it is because now there's a lot more accountability for not only physicians, but health insurers. So Kaiser Permanente, for example, they have a new acronym for health, which is SELF, which stands for sleep, exercise, love, and food, nutrition. This is Kaiser Permanente's new focus, SELF, sleep, exercise, love, and food. So one of those four is exercise. The accountability factor is very high now. Hospitals, if you have a procedure, are released and then readmitted because of complications, actually get a financial penalty for readmissions. Because doctors, private physicians now, are being assessed on how much interaction, patient engagement they're having, and if they don't have certain levels, they're financially penalized. So if you haven't heard from your doctor yet, you're going to be pretty soon about this patient engagement concept. So, what are the benefits of exercise? We're pretty familiar with that, I think, most of us. What are some of the things that exercise can do for us? Strength. Increased strength. And that's strength of muscles, strength of bones. Dr. Ken will be talking about that later. What else? Improved mood, absolutely.
The endorphins help improve the mood.
Endorphins help, absolutely. Endurance. Who doesn't want more endurance? Energy. What else? What medically? Balance. Okay, great. What an important one that is. As a matter of fact, balance, which of course, the lack of which can lead to falls. And as a matter of fact, another study was recently released on fall prevention, which says that exercise is the single best intervention to prevent falls in older adults, with up to 42% of falls being preventable by a well-designed exercise program. 42% of falls. So yes, absolutely, balance is key. What else? What in our physiology can benefit from exercise?
Social, blood pressure.
Okay, social for sure, which is key. Remember, Kaiser, love is one of theirs, that community engagement. Blood pressure, absolutely.
Gastrointestinal.
Intestinal. What else? Digestion, definitely. Weight loss. Sleep. And that's a really big one. And I might as well touch on it now. The studies show conclusively, while many people as we age tend to get less sleep and feel we can get away with it, and maybe outwardly it seems that we are, but the truth is that we need 7 to 9 hours sleep a night. 7 to 9 hours. And the reason is because stage 3 and 4 sleep is where the body particularly rejuvenates, reduces the cortisol levels in our system, which is a chemical that will help age the body significantly. It's released by stress of all sorts. So the deep sleep is very important, 7 to 9 hours. Anything else? Memory. Definitely. You know what? It does, absolutely. As a matter of fact, Dr. Venus will be speaking next week at the Expo on sexual fitness after 50. It definitely makes a difference. Okay, we could go on and on. We could cholesterol, cardiovascular health. All of these aspects are benefited from exercise program. But what kind of exercise? Gyms, now in a way, the old school gyms are becoming obsolete because the focus there is on single muscle movements, isolated muscle movements. So building your biceps by doing arm curls, for example. And there's nothing wrong with that, or overhead presses, sitting on a machine. And if that's all you do, that's better than not doing it. If you carry one thing away from tonight, my message is move. Move. Do what makes you more fit and that you like to do so that you continue doing it, right? But the downside of the isolated movement is that it's only working one muscle. It's not working the other aspects of the balance and flexibility and the types of movements that we do in real life. Because when you think about it, how many times do you do this during the course of a day? Or ever, really?
16 ounces at a time.
16 ounces at a time. You got me. What we want is functional fitness. That is the new focus with exercise professionals. Functional fitness. What does that mean? That means doing exercises that essentially replicate the movements that we use in real life. Because real life isn't one-dimensional, right? We're moving laterally, we're moving back and forth, we're moving across, right, in a transverse plane. So something as simple as getting groceries out of the back seat of the car, right? This isn't really going to help that. Reminds me of a woman who I know who just 3 weeks ago was getting ready to leave for a 3-week trip overseas, and the night before she was packing, 57 years old, reached up into a cupboard to get something to pull down and pulled out her back. She said by the time the next morning she could barely move, and she had to sit on an airplane all the way to Australia. It ruined her vacation. Just as these simple movements. But here's the good news. It's the SAID principle. S-A-I-D, which stands for Specific Adaptation to Imposed Demands. Specific adaptation to imposed demands, which means the body, our physiology, has to adapt. That's the way we're made. So if we apply resistance in a certain manner, the muscles will get stronger, the bones will get stronger, the ligaments, the tendons. If we utilize movements on a regular basis that we're more likely to use in real life, those will be enhanced. Whatever the imposed demand is, the body has to adapt. So that's the best news of tonight, is we're not just at the mercy anymore of time and of the body degenerating. We can actually reverse that. So, functional strength. So functional fitness. So we want to have movement patterns that work the whole body. And we want to exercise standing up, unless you're not able to. And if you're not, then definitely still do some seated exercises. But we want not just the major muscles, but the smaller muscle groups, and particularly the core, to be engaged. And that doesn't happen when we're sitting. So we want to be standing, and in fact, to really enhance it, use one leg at a time. And trust me, it sounds easy, but even if you want to do the bicep curl, do it on one leg. It's fascinating what changes in the body, just those little minor muscles that have to make those adjustments. And the core is critical to work. The core being not just the stomach, but all the way around the body from below the hips to the chest. This whole area here is where movement starts, all movement. So if we start to walk, it looks like I move my foot. I think, oh, I'm going to move my foot. Well, actually, yes, that happens at the end, after the core activates, and then it goes down through the hip, flexor area, the quadricep, and all the way down, and then the foot moves. It's imperceptible, but that's where all movement begins. So we want to strengthen the core, absolutely vital. So we'll talk about a couple ways to do that. First of all, though, posture. Posture is really important. And as we age, we tend to have less good posture. So I'm going to give you a quick exercise to do. My chiropractor I've been going to for a dozen years or so is Franco Colombo. Anybody remember Franco Colombo, the bodybuilder and powerlifting world champion, best friend of Arnold Schwarzenegger, was on TV as a strongman and such back in the 70s? Franco has been a chiropractor all that time. Now he's in his 70s, still practices just a couple days a week. And he says the best thing to do for posture is this exercise. Stand erect. And by the way, another thing to do is visualize a magnet, a very powerful magnet over your head, pulling up. So instead of trying to think to keep your head back or your shoulders back, just think of a magnet lengthening your body, pulling it up. And then put your hands at your sides, rotate palms outward, and then think about putting those hands in your back pockets conceptually. So that would mean going further back and down. And then push the chest forward, and gently hold that for 30 seconds. You want to hold all stretches for 30 seconds, and what you'll feel is a relaxation, a tension across the front of your body, and a tightening in the back. So let's all do that. Let's stand up and experience that. This is something I do every day, 2-3 times a day. I recommend it highly, because what this will do is stretch out those muscles across the front of your chest, which get very contracted because we tend to slump over, especially sitting at a computer, right? So we're going to, hands at your sides, rotate your palms outward. Now push down and back as though you're putting your hands in your back pockets. Push the chest forward and breathe slowly and deeply and relax into it. As you feel the muscles relaxing here, then rotate a little further outwards and down and back, and you'll feel probably tension across your chest area. You might feel some tightening in your back muscles because now these muscles are contracting. So what's happening is you're stretching these and you're strengthening these, so it's going to pull your shoulders back and down. This is a great exercise that if you do on a regular basis will help your posture. Okay, next thing is, might as well stay standing, is working on this concept called bracing. Bracing simply means contracting the muscles of the core. So if you just pull in a little bit, tighten those muscles, you don't have to do it really tense, about 25% contraction. And to kind of guide you, for some people at least, if you take your hands and sort of run them up and down your sides, for a lot of people that triggers an instant contraction of your muscles. So that's what you want to do often. Train yourself, and especially when you're, for example, bending down to lift something, or if you're reaching, because this is going to tighten almost like guy wires that hold a flagpole up, right? So the wind doesn't push it back and forth. This is sort of your internal guy wires, all right? And then lastly, learn how to activate your gluteus muscles, your butt. This is really important. So if you brace here and then kind of squeeze those buttocks muscles, the gluteus, that will really help prevent a lot of injuries as well as improve your posture. So for example, my medical doctor says that most of his male patients who come in with back problems, anyone want to guess the cause of those back problems?
The wallet, slumping in the back pocket.
Slumping, wallet, bad posture, gut. Those are contributors, I'm sure, but he says what triggers most back problems for his male patients is shaving. Shaving. The simple act of bending over the sink, and in this position, the back is weakened. But if you brace and squeeze the gluteus, pull in, now if you were to bend over, if you even try that a little bit, you'll feel the difference. You're supported. You see that? So these things take practice to become part of your daily life, but it's really vital. You may sit. No, don't lock your knees. Keep the knees, ankles, hips all loose and flexed. Yes. Now in a couple minutes I'm going to bring up Dr. Ken, but before, let's just touch on briefly the concept of the single best exercise and a single best piece of exercise equipment to use. Actually, before I do, one last thing on posture. How many people use a smartphone? Most. Notice next time when you pull it out of your pocket, what happens? Anybody notice my posture? It's not like this anymore, is it? I do it too. Phone rings. Bam. This is contributing now to a serious problem, epidemic, in kids, especially girls in their teens and young women, because there's so much time spent here. It's unbelievable. So when you use your smartphone, do your best, and I am guilty of not always doing this, but try to remember to pull it out and lift it up. See, now watch the difference. See, now if I do this, I'm not going to be like this, right? So all these things make a difference. Why? Because they're repetitive actions that go on every day of our lives, just like sitting. Sitting now, medicine is now saying sitting is the new smoking. It's not just a cause of back problems, which we always knew, but now it's cause of all kinds of other issues within the body. Okay, so, pain relief first. Best pain medicine that I've ever had, and from my athletic days, I have a screw in this shoulder, 2 screws in this knee, no anterior cruciate in this knee, ligament. I have all kinds of issues. I stretch 15, 20 minutes a day, at night, every night. 5 minutes in the morning. Without that, I would be not walking around like I do now. And this. Anybody know what this is? Foam roller. It's just a piece of closed cell foam, typically about twice this length. I just have a short one, so it's easy to carry around. So, and this can be purchased for about $30, $40 at any sporting goods store, Big Five, Sport Chalet, those kinds of places. I highly recommend it. What do you do with it? You roll on it, but not a fast rolling back and forth. The way, and you can use it for any body part, but for example, for the back, and you would do this laying down, not on your neck because the neck is a very sensitive area, but starting at the top of the back, just simply roll slowly down until you find the spot that's the most sore. And trust me, that will become apparent very quickly. It's rather uncomfortable, but it really works, because what happens is when you find that spot, stay there. And just like the stretch, how long do we hold the stretch? 30 seconds. You do this for 30 seconds. It has the same effect, but it's more dramatic because it's putting pressure on that muscle. And it will release. It triggers the muscle to relax. And then the pain goes away. So it's fantastic. The second aspect of this, and it can be used on the leg, front of the leg, the back of the leg. I mean, you could even do it leaning against a wall, for example, for let's say your shoulder. You could just simply roll till find where it's sore, right about there, and I just hold it there for 30 seconds. It's that simple. And you'll be amazed at the difference. Do this 5 minutes, 6, 7 minutes a day for a couple weeks, and you're a different person. Yes?
What do you recommend for a tight neck?
Tight neck? You can use this on the sides. It's a little tricky, but most, or at least a lot of times, these will come with a little instructional booklet. Also, we're actually getting ready to open up a new older adult fitness center here in Woodland Hills. We're going to be doing open houses on the weekends. We'll be doing free foam rolling sessions. You bring your foam roller and we'll teach you to do it. So, but it's a relatively simple process. For those stubborn areas, this is the key. I picked up this at a massage, LA Sports Massage. It's some kind of athletic ball. It says NCAA approved. I'm not sure what type of ball, but it's a very hard, dense rubber. And then the same concept applies. I sit in a chair and lean against this, let it roll down the back until I find that sore spot, which becomes, again, very apparent, and then hold that there, relax into it. And for the areas that are really tightly knotted, which for a lot of us is pretty common, this will break up that spasm and relieve the pain. So these are the 2 best pain medicines that I can suggest. Okay, so now, what's the best, single best, now that we've kind of gotten loose and stay loose, as Dr. Colombo tells me to do, stay loose, what's the single best anti-aging exercise? Anybody want to guess? Dancing. Oh, that's a good one. Walking. Laughing, swimming. Tennis, those are all great. But if we had to pick one single exercise, the old-fashioned push-up. The push-up. that many of us have done in our lives. Most, maybe not for a while, maybe not since PE in high school. But it works because it works so many muscle groups in the body at the same time. And you don't have to do a lot of them to have a real impact. And if you can't do a push-up in a traditional push-up position, just let the knees go down to the floor and do it there. Because it's really working so many muscles on the front and back of the body, and especially the core, right, in this area we talked about. Related to the push-up is the plank. Think of a plank of wood, right, which is straight. So it's this push-up position, but then with the weight on, instead of on your hands, on the forearms, with the body behind you in a plank position. So if this was the floor, it would look like this, right? So we're not here, It's a straight position, bracing, tightening, and just hold, and it's simple as that. Just hold that position. Maybe you can hold it for 5 seconds, maybe 20 seconds. Build up to a minute. Do that several times. This, again, will work the entire body. These are simple, but they really work. Then, next step is, what's the best piece of exercise equipment?
Floor.
Bands, floor. Well, you're familiar with it, but maybe not for a long time.
Medicine ball.
Medicine ball. Remember these? Gym class? They still work. The Romans used them. Our physiology has not changed since then. It still works today. This is mine. I use it all the time at home. And in a few minutes with this, you will notice a difference very quickly. What do you do with it? Well, and by the way, you can pick these up, again, at any sporting goods store, $30, $40. How big? This is 12 pounds. I'm about 195 pounds, so that's, what, 6 maybe percent of body weight? 5% is good. Definitely no more than 10. So 5%, if you weigh 150 pounds, 7.5 pounds, you know, somewhere, 5% of your body weight. It doesn't matter the type. This one bounces a tiny bit. Some of them bounce high. Some of them won't bounce at all. That doesn't matter. The key is that you hold onto it and go through an extra series of exercises without putting it down. Why? Because science has discovered a new concept in exercise, which is time under tension, T-U-T, time under tension. It's not just how much weight you lift, but how long your muscles are engaged. Well, if you don't put it down, you've got time under tension. So you don't need a heavy weight. And what do you do with it? Well, you can do everything you would do machines. So for the biceps, you can do push, lifting from the back, which is going to work the triceps. You can go forwards, and again, you want to start with a basic athletic position, all your joints flexed, ankles, knees, hips, so you're not, you know, top heavy, and then brace, tighten, and then work from that position. And you can pretty much use your imagination, going to each side, squatting with it, you can lunge with it, most of the movements that you would do in other forms of exercise, but holding this ball, and especially crossing the mid-body point of the line. So rotational exercises, you'll be surprised. It not only works the main muscle group of whatever exercise you're doing, but also all these other little stabilizing muscles and the core. So a fantastic tool that is easy to use and quick. A few minutes of that, a few minutes of foam rolling. We're going to talk later, briefly, I'll give you another aspect of a workout. But first, I want to bring up Dr. Ken Howiak, who is a very renowned former surgeon, podiatrist, and I think we've lost all the lights somehow. I think we had a timer issue there. Dr. Ken has been a professor at the University of Hawaii School of Medicine. He's done thousands and thousands of bone density screenings and interpreted the results. Unfortunately, several years ago, his mother, who had osteoporosis, had a hip fracture, fell, and passed away within 6 weeks. And since then, Dr. Ken has devoted his career to helping people understand bone health. And that's what he's here to do tonight. Let's welcome Dr. Ken Howiak.
That was DG. How good was that? And how good was that too? How about a round of applause for DG and Honora? Okay, I wrote a book called Bone Health Made Easy. My job is to make it easy. You can get that on Amazon.com. And that's what this talk is about. But isn't it interesting what all the things that DG was saying, that body position, things that you continue to do over and over, that body position eventually kind of catches up to you and causes certain things. You know, what I used to do as a kid all the time, I used to like to stand on my head. Raise your hand if you used to do that quite a bit as a child, just stand on your head. Okay. Now, of course, if you do it over and over and over again like I was doing, now it doesn't have any pressure at all, any effect on the sides of your head, but look what it did on this part. See? So you don't want to do that. So okay, so let's go to the next slide. Okay, so we're making things really confusing. Unnecessarily so, and that's really, I think, the reason why we have osteoporosis, because we're making things so unnecessarily difficult. We're not supposed to get osteoporosis. It's not a natural part of aging. We're the only animal species on planet Earth that get osteoporosis. There's reason to believe that perhaps at one time we didn't get it. Now,
would you define osteoporosis?
Somebody tell me. I'm going to have you define it. Okay, tell me what you think it is. Sally.
It's holes in the bone.
There you go. There's one way to look. There's a whole bunch of ways to look at it. How about somebody else? Tell me what it is.
Porous loss.
Porous bones?
Bone loss.
Bone loss? Okay, that's all correct. Now you can look at it this way. How about this way? When I fall, I put myself at risk for breaking a bone. So there's a sequence there. You fall first, break bone second. You broke a bone because you fell. That's not osteoporosis. Osteoporosis is not you falling and breaking a bone. It's you breaking a bone and falling. Like a lot of people. Okay? So I'm going to have you look at osteoporosis in a whole new way. It means the word osteoporosis, osteoporosis, porous bones, it means porous bones in Greek. Okay, what I've noticed is that people get these terms mixed up. Osteo just means bone, and it's put in front of some words where it shouldn't be. For example, osteoarthritis. That's the thing that people get mixed up with osteoporosis with. Osteoarthritis has osteo in front of it, shouldn't be there. It's arthritis. Okay? Osteoarthritis, you feel, it hurts. And no matter how much of osteoarthritis you have, it'll never kill you. Whereas osteoporosis, no matter how much of it you have, you feel nothing. It's silent. And yet it can kill you. They're kind of opposites. They're not even in the same area. Osteoarthritis is in your joints. Osteoporosis is in your bones. Neither causes the other. Okay? They don't even relate. Osteonecrosis, necrotic means dead. Dead bone, as in dead jawbone. Osteonecrosis of the jaw, that's a condition that didn't even exist before the medicines that we use for osteoporosis. It didn't even exist before that. Okay? So a lot of people get these things mixed up. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so I want to make bone health your target. Why? Because when you put bone health in the bullseye, knowing that you want to always aim at the bullseye in order to assure that you're going to at least hit the target. You don't have to hit a bullseye, but if you aim at the bullseye, you're more likely to hit the target. Bone health ought to be in the middle. And the reason is, when you do so, all the same things that bring about high bone density tend to bring about a lot of things in your health. Your blood pressure will go down. Your blood glucose will go down. Your cholesterol goes down. Your waistline goes down. Your health goes up. Now, you can do things in an easy way now. If you're going to test your bone density frequently as every 6 months, we're not going to stick you. We're not going to mislead you. We're not going to confuse you. You're going to understand your results right there and then. You're going to know your color. Green, yellow, or red. Because what I've noticed is that no one ever remembers their number. No one ever remembers their T-score, ever. What they remember is their color. And most people know that green is good and red is bad. Green is normal, yellow is osteopenia, and red is osteoporosis. So if you monitor that, you're monitoring your health. Okay? So make bone health your target. It's a lot more than just preventing the hip, the backaches, the getting shorter, the hunched over part. It's a lot more than that. Next slide. And by the way, I'm going to give you a statistic right now to scare you. Purposely, I'm going to try to scare you, and I'm doing it for a reason, to alert you to the condition. Here, for those of you who are over the age of 50, if you break your hip tonight, you'll immediately have a 24% chance of being dead in the next 12 months. In other words, those who are over the age of 50 who break their hip have a 1 in 4 chance of dying within the year because of that injury.
Why?
The hip. Largely the hip and because of the hospitalization. Now, if you do break your hip and you're lucky enough not to die as a result, you still have a 75% chance of never fully recovering. Okay? So, I'm a foot surgeon. I cut through bones. I'm always looking at bones. Bones to me always look like a sea sponge. They always have those same bubbles in them. And osteoporosis is the bubbles being too big and your bones being subject to breaking. So next slide. Now, a lot of you have had this test done. It's called a DEXA scan. And that machine goes over you. It's an X-ray. There are those colors there. And they're trying to differentiate 3 different parts of your body. The doctor is trying to get to a diagnosis, and they're trying to monitor the effects of drugs. The doctor, the letter the D shows up everywhere. The doctor is diagnosing and differentiating and monitoring the effects of drugs. None of that is your job. Let your doctor do her job. That's a great test. Get as many of those as you can. I only wish you could get more of them. Your insurance company says you don't need one any more often than every 2 years. Not true. It means they don't want to pay for it. Okay? By right, you can show a statistically significant change in as soon as 6 months. In other words, you can know in as soon as 6 months whether your current plan is working or not working. Don't you want to know? And if it's working, great, you can continue doing what you're doing. If you found out in 6 months that it isn't working, well then you could make a change rather than be kept in the dark several more months and be disengaged. So this is not a very good self-monitoring method. This one is. You can do it early. This is what we're doing tonight. And for those of you I don't get to tonight, we'll get to you on the 19th when we do that big event here. And you're going to have a multitude of other tests. You should come. Okay? So this allows us to do it easily, early, and often, and maybe as often as every 6 months. Now you can have your finger on the pulse of your progress, because what I've noticed is that the people who ratchet up their testing, ratchet up their awareness, they ratchet up their results. There was a Cornell study done in the year 2005, done over 6 years, that shows that people who got screened for their bone density, regardless of what they chose to do about it, regardless of what solutions they wanted to put in place, just the mere fact that they got screened showed a 36% reduction in their hip fracture, just from the testing, because of the awareness that occurred from the learning experience that was coupled with the testing. So, and that's what testing's done poorly, because most of them are not done that well. Okay? All right, so self-monitor, allow your doctor to monitor. Don't do one or the other, do both. Yes, it is accurate. Accuracy is not the issue. We're only doing one bone, but if you're following one good bone, like your heel bone, as your heel bone goes, so go all the bones in your body. So once you've gotten your diagnosis, now you want to know if you're getting better or worse. Okay? This allows you to do it. Do both. Okay, these are meaningful things, because as you go up, proportionally, it affects your risk for bone density. Now, this is a more accurate determinant of whether or not you're going to fracture a bone than cholesterol is toward a stroke. More accurate than blood pressure is toward a stroke. It's very meaningful. The higher you go, the better. The lower you go, the worse. Now, what I've noticed is that no one has ever invented a way for you to remember all this stuff. All the things you need to do to improve your bone density, all of them fall under A or B or C. And it's in that order of importance, too. A is the most important. Knowing that there are some activities that don't work toward bone health, some activities that don't raise your bone density. I'm not saying they're not healthy. They can be great activities, great exercises, but that doesn't mean they're lowering your, that doesn't mean that they're improving your bone health. Examples are swimming. Swimming doesn't raise your bone density. All right? Elliptical. You're weight bearing. Your body's moving. Great exercise. Doesn't raise your bone density. Doesn't help your bone health. Well, we'll get to that one. Another one is bicycling. Bicyclists have a higher incidence of osteoporosis than the general population does, because they're sitting. Now, what's wrong with these three things is that their feet are not hitting the ground. Your feet are not hitting the ground if you're doing these things. We were always meant to walk. We've always been meant to walk. And the more you do, the higher your bone density goes.
What about on a treadmill?
Treadmill's good too. Treadmill is almost as good as walking vigorously outside. It's really good. Okay, so if you do nothing else after tonight, double your walking. And I promise you, with all things being the same, it improves your bone density, improves your bone health. Now, the B is the bad stuff. If you're not taking notes, you should, and I'm going to tell you 7 things you want to do less of. Smoking, soda, sugar, and salt. Do you know your bones are half water? Your bones are 50% water. This is not a real bone, don't worry. This is, but bones are 50% water, and these 7 things, and I haven't got to the last 3 yet, the 7 things will either dehydrate your bones, or they will acidify, create acid, which is really what osteoporosis is. They'll either acidify or they will dehydrate your bones. And some of these do both, okay? So I mentioned smoking, soda, sugar, salt. Here's number 5, 6, and 7. Meat, animal protein. Not protein, animal protein. And if I put my 2 fists out in front of me, what I'm looking at right now is my week supply of animal protein, meat. Good meat or bad meat, white meat, red meat, animal protein is animal protein. It's acid. We're talking about your bones. And even the good meat will lower your bone density when you take it in excess. Animal protein is an established, controllable risk factor for osteoporosis. That's your maximum over the week. That's it, okay? Alcohol. Don't drink a lot of alcohol. Alcohol also dehydrates you and creates acid. Alcohol is a risk factor for osteoporosis. And then the final one, number 7, under B, is coffee. Don't drink more than 3 cups of regular coffee a day. All right? So now you know the 7 bad things. All right? Now, complete nutrition. I've noticed that some people eat well, or at least they feel like they eat well, eat a good diet, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they supplement well. And then other people are the opposite. They might supplement well, but their diet really isn't as good as they think it is. Okay? There aren't that many people who do both perfectly. So we're going to get into how you can do C really well in a very short time. We're going to get to C. Okay. Okay. If you could say diagnosis, and we can't, but we will, that's how you get to your diagnosis. And use colors. You don't need big words. That would be osteoporosis. That would be osteopenia. That would be normal. High risk for fracture, moderate risk for fracture, low risk for fracture. If you could say treatment, and we're not allowed to say treatment, but I will, that's your treatment, and it's not the medicines. The medicines are reserved for people who are low in the red, they're being overutilized, they're getting us in trouble, they're not going to be around forever, they don't make your bones strong. What these medicines do is they make your bones hard. They're inhibiting osteoclasts, they're keeping the tree from being pruned, they're allowing old accumulated dead bone to stay around. That's chalk. Okay, sometimes it makes the medicines look really good when you're looking at dead bone or bone that's not viable. Okay, so that's what these medicines do. And for those of you who are taking bisphosphonates like alendronate, Reclass, Fosamax, Actonil, Boniva, the Salafields medicine, Prolia, don't take them for more than 5 years. That's max. And if you're in the green or yellow, you shouldn't be on them in the first place. Okay? Because every medicine you take has to do more good than bad. Am I right? Every medicine you take has to do more good than bad. So you're weighing risks versus benefits. The people in the green or yellow, they can say that the medicines are doing them more harm than good. The red people can't. They're time bombs. They're in trouble. They could break a hip. They could die. They're worse off. They're worse off without the medicines.
How about DP? DP.
I'm sorry, I can't hear.
DP vitamin.
D3.
D3, we'll get to that. We'll get to vitamin D3. Okay. Okay, so next slide. Okay, so you're wondering, well, okay, so what is the activity for me? The activity that you choose has to be the one that's right for you, that you do right, and that you can sustain. You don't have to get cute with it. You don't have to be clever, okay? But you want to get some guidance. It doesn't have to be complicated. Your feet, when they hit the ground, respond. And walkers do well, runners do well, dancers do well, people who do weight training, weight resistance do well, so do Zumba and jazzercise, and people do a lot of hiking. Which one's right for you? The one that you can keep doing, that you're going to enjoy and you're going to continue to sustain. And as DG mentioned, tennis players always score well. And it isn't because they're hitting the hard court, but they're getting that shock wave through the racket too. Just like they get it from the ground, from hitting the hard court, they're getting it from the racket, which reverberates through their body. Those guys score well. Okay?
If your wife physically abused you,
Well, you call the police first. No. Yeah, so Sally's raising your bone density. Okay, so we'll run through these 7. Don't drink too much coffee.
What about decaf?
Decaf's better because there's no caffeine in it. And actually, one of the bad things about soda is that it has caffeine in it, but it also has phosphoric acid and sugar and a low pH. Okay, next one.
What's the latest thing about taking 2 to 5 cups of coffee for your heart health?
Well, see, that depends on what your focus is. If you, oh, she's wondering about the benefits of taking 3 to 5 cups of coffee for your bone health. We're focused for your heart health. We're focusing on bones. Your bones don't want to be dehydrated. Okay? Your bones are 50% water. Okay. All right, so this is actually salt. And what gives salt its color are minerals. And when you take the color out and you make salt white, you've taken the good stuff out. Okay? That's a risk factor for osteoporosis, which is sodium. You're taking the good stuff out that would have helped the bones.
What's the good stuff?
Minerals. What makes Himalayan salt pink are the minerals. Okay, next slide. Okay, and next slide. Do you folks know that plums are the healthiest fruit for your body? Florida State University study. Plums were #1, far and away #1. Apples were #2. They think it might be the phytonutrients or the minerals in the plums. They don't know for sure, and they're not advocating fresh ones. They're not saying fresh ones. Why do they prefer that you do dried plums? Anybody? For no other reason. Nope. They want you to do prunes. They want you to do dried plums for no other reason than the fact that you can do it all year round that way. 4 to 6 dried plums a day. Do it for 6 months. Watch what your bone density does. Oh, well, let's reserve questions. I really want to get through this. Hang on. 4 to 6 plums. 4 to 6 plums a day. They raise your bone density.
Why?
We don't know. Okay, next slide. Okay, let's go to that last one. Okay, seeds, these are the things you want to concentrate on when you go to the grocery store. There's 4 things that have minerals, which means there are 4 things that have a lot of calcium. They are seeds, nuts, green leafy vegetables, and beans. The best of the seeds are sesame seeds. You get the nutrients out of the seeds more when you crush them. It's called tahini dressing. Okay, nuts. The almonds are the best for calcium of all the nuts. There are all kinds of beans, and whatever you want to say about soybeans, they are #1 for calcium. Okay, a lot of people think spinach is really way up there for calcium. It's way down there. It has an oxalate form of calcium that our body doesn't absorb, along with asparagus and Swiss chard. What's better than kale? You thought kale was #1, right? Is collard greens. And what's better than collard greens are something called lamb's quarters, which are a weed, which are a green leafy vegetable that you'll find at the farmer's market sometimes, also known as pigweed, and it's a member of the goosefoot family. My wife bought some the other day. It tastes good. It's a green leafy vegetable. It's #2. #1 is grape leaves. Grape leaves. Grape leaves. Stuffed grape leaves. Okay?
Is bok choy up there?
Yes. Bok choy is in the top 10. Probably number 6 or 7. Broccoli's up there. Okay, I want to make a point with this. I mentioned animal protein creates acid, which actually lowers your bone density, but then again, on things like salmon, fatty fish, anchovies, sardines, you've got good and bad in there. You've got a lot of vitamin D, you've got omegas, but you also have animal protein. And with all these things, the more you take in of them in excess, the more the bad in them starts to overcome the good in them. Okay? So don't eat a lot. Okay? We found that out from British Medical Journal, a journal study. Salmon is very healthy, but you keep doing it, your bone density goes down. That's the animal protein in salmon. Okay, next slide. Do you know that you can eat eggshells? Eggshells are very full of calcium. Okay, next one. You have to have a good blender. I talked to people who make milkshakes. I don't know how they do it. I'm told that the bullet actually will grind down eggshells, but I don't know. Okay, so vitamin D. Here's the thing about vitamin D. How much time do I have, DG? Okay, 5 minutes. Okay, it's not really ABC, it's ABCD, but D is actually under C, so it's still ABC. So, next slide. We know that vitamin D allows us to absorb more calcium, which helps our bones. Next slide. Now I'm going to give you a little tip. When you're outside, if you want to know at any given moment whether or not you're making vitamin D or not, you must look down at the ground and see whether or not you have a short shadow. Who's heard of this before? This is sound stuff, comes from vitamin D researchers. It's simple geometry. Geometry would indicate that if the sun is coming at me from a 45-degree angle, the shadow that I yield is going to be the same size as me. If the shadow is shorter than me, that means the sun is more up there than there. If the shadow is longer than me, and you don't have a short shadow, it means the sun is over there. You want to be out there between 10:30 and 1:30 when the sun is beyond a 45-degree angle and you have a shorter shadow. Okay? Now, if you don't have a shadow, you're not receiving ultraviolet B. It's not hitting your skin perpendicular. You're not making vitamin D. You must have a shadow, and it must be a short shadow.
Is this an issue at all for Southern California?
Less of an issue.
I mean, if you live in North Dakota,
it's a bigger
or
issue.
Alaska, this
Yeah.
is an issue.
As you go north,
we get more sun than we need. Our skin can't handle it. We get cancer and all kinds of terrible things.
Well, here's the thing. We've seen that as you go more and more north, that the deficiency in vitamin D is greater and greater. Yeah. Okay. So vitamin D cannot be made through sunscreen. So ultraviolet B will not penetrate sunscreen. It will not go through your clothes. It will not go through your glasses. It will not go through the window. It will not go through the clouds. But you got to be out there the right time of day, under the right conditions, even the right months out of the year. So that's why nobody thinks you're going to get enough by being out in the sun. Okay? So, really quickly, there are 6 foods on planet Earth that have vitamin D in them. Here they are. There's only 6 foods. Fatty fish, egg yolks, pork. Yes, pork. I'm not saying these are health foods. I'm just telling you it has vitamin D in them. All right? Liver of all animals. Liver makes vitamin D. Okay? Certain types of mushrooms and certain types of algae. You got to do a lot of this stuff. So it's hard to get it from supper too. It's hard to get it from the sun. It's hard to get it from supper. You must supplement. Next slide. Now, some of you will want a recap of this or a summary. You might want a continuation. You want more information? Go to healthierbones.com. There, you can learn more about ABC as it applies to you. You'll learn about what's really causing osteoporosis, how to eat right. You'll learn more about vitamin D. You want to contact me? Go to Contact Dr. Ken. You'll get my email address and my cell phone. If you want time with me, it takes 2 to 3 hours with you for me to get a result. That's why your doctor can't get a result with you, because your doctor's not going to give you 2 or 3 hours. I'm going to give it to you, and you're going to get a result. Contact me, and I'll do this with you over the phone or in person, and we'll get a result. And we'll measure before, we'll measure again at 6 months, and find out how well it worked. So go to not Healthy Bones, healthierbones.com. Next slide. Okay, that's it. So how about one or two questions? Okay, did you? One or two. I'm sorry? Okay, you should not be doing more than 900 milligrams of calcium supplementation a day. 500 to 900, depending on how well you eat. Can you pull it off where you're eating well enough to not even need calcium? Yes, you actually can. You get your vitamin D level high enough, your need for calcium lessens, and if you're eating really well, you probably can get by without calcium supplementation, but you can never get by without vitamin D. If your vitamin D level is low, you run a risk for stroke. You better know what your level is. Otherwise, you don't even know how much to take. If your level's high, God bless you. You don't need very much vitamin D, but if you're like most of us, If you're like most of us, you need a lot. Vitamin D Council thinks that most of us should be taking about 5,000 IUs a day. And if you knew all the benefits, you would do so. For example, if you get your level to 50 nanograms per milliliter or higher, get it to 50, it's a better flu shot than the flu shot is. One more question.
Are dates as good as prunes?
No. No.
But I like it better.
Yeah, yes? Vitamin D3 is 500 times more powerful than D2. Vitamin D3 is the good stuff. It's the stuff your body's trying to make. It comes from the wool of sheep. 95% of the vitamin D in this country comes from lanolin. That's from the wool of sheep. D3 is powerful.
Let's give it up for Dr. Ken. Dr. Ken, we have the switch. And for those of you who didn't get questions answered, Dr. Ken will stay around later, and we'll be back on the 19th at the Wellness Expo. And Nora's going to give you a quick breakdown of a little bit of what's happening there while I read mine.
So, at the expo, as DG said, we'll have close to 30 other sponsors here. A lot of them will be organizations like ourselves that are here to help you, to educate you, to provide you services in many different fields: finances, homes, health, movement, food. All right? So please come and check us out. We also have 2 more speakers in addition to DG and Dr. Ken, Dr. Venus Ramos, and Terry Crystal. Her talk on nutrition is something very unique, and you really want to check it out. So come and hang out with us on that day, 9:30 to 12:30. Same location, way different setup, lots more people, and bring your friends. So we have a ton of flyers on that front table. Take them and spread them around. So now DG is going to quickly finish us up, last couple minutes, and then you have questions.
All right, thank you, Honora. Honora is a certified functional aging specialist, as well as I am. And she's also a corrective exercise specialist certified through the National Academy of Sports Medicine, which is a growing field, corrective exercise. There's actually a specific protocol of how to assess the body's imbalances, the musculature imbalances and weaknesses, and then go through a certain process to strengthen the underused muscles and rebalance, which is a really important thing, because when you think about it, a dramatic example would be if anybody ever had a limp, hurt yourself and you limp, and then all of a sudden the other side starts hurting, right? It's that overcompensation. So that happens also even like with posture, right? We have these conditions that occur that create muscle imbalances, and that is actually the cause of most injuries. So Nora, being a corrective exercise specialist, somebody who can help you go through that. She'll be doing exercise demonstrations at the Wellness Expo on the 19th. So make sure you come back for that. She's also the manager and associate director of training for our Defy Aging Solutions. Our new older adult fitness studio will be opening up here in Woodland Hills shortly. Sally is a good friend who was here last week. We did these seminars, and I just wanted to bring her up because somebody in the back of the room said, I was talking about exercise and how it can benefit you, and then somebody said, yeah, that's easy for you to say, wait 20 years. Well, here I am in 20 years in a female form. Sally's 70 years old, and as a result of her commitment to exercise and proper nutrition, here's a perfect living example, walking, breathing, living example of how we can age gracefully. In fact, I'm not going to ask you to do it now, but the last time she actually ran up after that woman said that and dropped down and started doing push-ups and to demonstrate that in fact we really do have the control of our goals and our aging process. Thanks, Sally.
Wait. I want to see you do the push-ups.
Okay, all right, let's see some push-ups.
1, 2.
Notice how straight or back, flat or back is.
5, 6, 7.
Okay, see? It's possible. 10, all right. There you go. So we've talked a lot about what to do. What about what not to do? What are the 5 most common exercise mistakes? Anybody want to guess? Yeah, sitting on the couch. You know, that would, in a broad sense. Okay, tell you, number one, not enough. No surprise there, right? Not enough exercise. But what about the opposite? Too much. Doesn't apply to too many people, but we can overtrain. And that's not good for the body either because it's creating too much stress. Okay? Third would be too much of the same type. So while movement, of course, as I've said, is key, if you do the same kind of movement over and over, think about a golf swing. Professional golfers hit about 3,000 swings a week. All the same motion, only working certain muscle groups, not the others. That's why not only professional but recreational golfers have very high incidence of injury. We don't think of golf as a high-risk sport, but over 50% of golfers suffer injuries in specific parts of the body, shoulder, elbow, hip, because of that. Running. Any kind of exercise that you only do one type of is going to lead to those muscle imbalances. So too much of the same thing. Poor form is another big problem. So for example, if you're going to lift weights, but you're doing it and jerking your back, for example. So you want to make sure whatever exercise you do that bracing and be very conscious. It's not about how much weight you're lifting, but the form that you're using while doing it. And lastly, lack of flexibility or range of motion exercises. So again, utilizing whole body movements that mimic the types of movements we do in real life in a three-dimensional, multiplanar manner. Okay, then, a couple quick things. One is this whole concept of the fat-burning zone. And for a long time, people have said, oh, you have that zone where if you work out at your heart rate in a certain area, you'll burn the most fat. And actually, that is true. We work out with a heart rate 65, 75% of our maximum heart rate. It does burn the most calories per minute. But what new science has found is that you have to do lots of those minutes at that lower intensity. That you actually burn more calories faster at a higher intensity that more than offsets that higher percentage burn in the fat burning zone. So it's really a myth in a sense. The key is the higher intensity. Now, how many people here have heard of CrossFit? Quite a few. And other high intensity interval training types of exercise. HIIT, H-I-I-T, high intensity interval training. It's very effective, but it's so hard that most people stop. And as Dr. Ken so well pointed out, we want to do exercise that we enjoy, that we can maintain. That's where we get the benefit over time. So some Swedish researchers decided, let's do a test and see if we can do a modified high-intensity interval training that isn't so hard so that people might adhere to the program longer. And let's see if that works, how well that works. And they discovered that a modified high-intensity interval training did amazing results for not only deconditioned people, but even those who were competitive runners, 5-kilometer runners, reduced their times. And here's what it is. This is what they did their research on, and you can do it easily. Pick an aerobic activity, something that gets your heart rate up. Could be walking, running, cycling, swimming, any aerobic activity, and do it like this. Go 30 seconds at a slow pace. So let's say walking. So walk at a slow pace for 30 seconds. Then increase to a moderate level of intensity for 20 seconds. And then walk pretty much as fast as you can, or run or cycle or whatever the exercise is, for 10 seconds. Just 10 seconds. And then go back to 30 seconds slow. Right? 20, 30, 30, 20, 10. So that's 1 minute. Do that 4 times. Then stop and take a rest for 2 minutes. And repeat that cycle. 30, 20, 10, 4 more times. So you've got 4 minutes of exercise, 2 minutes of rest, 4 minutes of exercise. 10 minutes total. That's it. This is what the research was based on. But the key was that 10 seconds. Amazing that so little made such a difference. And most of us can maintain an aggressive pace for 10 seconds, right? Maybe 15 or 20 minutes, no. But 10 seconds because we get that 30 seconds of slow right afterwards. And the whole thing is only going to take 10 minutes. So this 30, 20, 10 interval training is something you can do walking around your block. It's that simple. And if you take that, which will work your cardiovascular system, potentially other areas of the body, depending on what you're doing, you can even do it with the medicine ball. You could do repetitions at a slow pace and then a faster pace. I mean, you can do it with lots of different exercises, anything that gets your heart rate up, okay? But if you did it, let's say, with walking or running or cycling, and then you did 5 to 7 minutes with a medicine ball and did some flexibility exercises, stretching, foam rolling, you're talking about maybe 20 to 25 minutes of exercise, and you will see remarkable gains in just a few weeks. It really makes a difference. You don't have to spend 2 or 3 hours in the gym. Then if you want to take it to the next level, there's now science that shows that we can, if we monitor our heart rate in certain zones, or heart rate zone training. It's a little harder to do with a pulse. You can, but it's inconvenient. But there are heart rate monitor systems now. We'll be using this at our facility, for example, which record how long you're in each of the 4 different zones. And then in this case, with this equipment, actually provides you with a printout to show you can see where your workouts, and it tracks it over each day, week, month, and year, and so forth. So science has been really moving along, progressing to help us exercise more effectively, so we can do it in shorter durations and do things that we enjoy and get the benefits. And who doesn't want shorter workouts, right?
Is that why the Fitbit has become so famous?
Fitbit, as yes, that's a whole. Yeah, that does track, but it's actually not very accurate. There's even some class action lawsuits going on right now against those kinds of companies because of lack of accuracy. The more sophisticated type that I'm referring to is actually about 99% as accurate as an EKG. So you want to use really the good stuff. One other thing about that high intensity, that 30, 20, 10 approach, is afterwards you continue burning calories at a higher rate. You have this sort of afterburn. And some studies show that that's for a few hours, some that it can be a day or more, but regardless, there is a period of time after you stop exercising, if you had worked at a little higher intensity level, that you continue to burn more calories, which is, of course, another good benefit. All right, lastly, we'll talk about cognitive fitness. Here's a really exciting area. It was always believed, up until a few years ago, and we were taught, that the brain was formed and at a very young age, 4 or 5 years old, stopped growing. No more neurons were being generated. That's what we were taught, and that's what everybody believed. But they found out that's not true. So here's another piece of great news for the night. Our brains, through the process of neurogenesis, actually regrow neurons. And this is amplified by several activities. First and best being exercise. What type? Aerobic, something that gets our heart rate up into that 70, 80% of our maximum heart rate. Doesn't matter what type. So aerobic exercise helps generate brain growth. Second is learning new things. It can be anything. It could be learning how to play a sport or play music or crossword puzzles, or even in the house. Sometimes I'll change the positioning in the cupboard of the saucers and the plates and going to put them away. It causes this momentary activation of thought. The first 500 times we do something, they've discovered, is what generates the most neurons. So we want to continue learning. They're saying now learn something new every year. Learn a language. Learn how to do pottery or crochet. Anything that stimulates the mind to work on something you haven't done before will help your brain grow. And the other thing they've discovered is this concept of neuroplasticity, which means that the brain they've discovered is not just fully formed and solid, it's actually flexible. So once again, these kinds of new activities and exercise will help keep it flexible. And the proper application of these techniques has been shown now, as this gentleman pointed out in the beginning of tonight's session, to actually prevent, slow, and even reverse Alzheimer's in all 3 stages of Alzheimer's. So it's really dramatic. And we can do this while we're still sound of mind to maintain that cognitive clarity and acuity. Lastly, again, science has been developed for brain science. combined with exercise. So when we exercise, the best thing to do is something that crosses the midline of the body. So the hand going across that midline or the foot going across the midline. These exercises, for example, my sister is a public educator in the state of Washington. Their school district employs these kinds of exercises with the kids because, again, it's been shown to help develop. And so you want to do those kinds of exercises. And lastly, there's even some equipment, we'll be featuring this at our facility, that's called SmartFit. You can look up SmartFit, multisensoryfitness.com. It's like a tennis backboard. And you remember the childhood game of whack-a-mole, where you hit the thing and then it pops back up at a random, you don't know where it's going to be? So it's kind of like that. A tennis backboard visualized with 27 targets on it, with LED lights behind Lexan cover, so that it can be struck with a hand, with a ball, with a foam noodle, all kinds of different implements. And so what happens is it's programmed to randomly sequence letters, numbers, symbols that you have to track. So now you're working the body up, down, laterally, cross the midline, while you're looking for the smiley face, or A, then B, where's C? Oh, over here, which is fantastically effective. There's over 1,000 schools in the United States that have this piece of equipment. 100 military installations. The US military is now training soldiers with this because it works the cardiovascular, it works the musculature, and it works the mind, reaction time. So there's a lot of technology now, properly employed, can really help us. So in conclusion, so we've talked about exercise, its benefits, things to look out for, ways to exercise, stay loose. We're all on a trajectory of aging. And this is something that is predicated largely on exercise. Trajectory of aging scale, as the scientists call it. And everybody is on the scale. We're all on the scale. There's 5 steps to it. Number 1 is elite. Masters athletes, people who are competing in the Senior Olympics, which is a growing area. Over 25,000 participants last year at the Senior Olympics now, which is for people over 50, and the categories are in 5-year increments. A few years ago, became so popular, men's basketball, that they had to add a new category, men's basketball, for men over 80. So there are a lot of people out there who are very active. So researchers have studied this group of masters athletes, elite, to see, well, how does their health fare in other areas of cholesterol, diabetes, heart disease, cancer, all of these areas, and they found remarkably that the difference in disease and independent living and functioning is extraordinarily higher with these elite level exercise participants. Second is physically fit. Those who are exercising on a regular basis, 3-4 times a week, doing the kinds of things we talked about tonight. Third is people who maybe not exercising, but are still independent, living on their own. Next would be those who are frail and perhaps need some level of assistance, maybe non-medical, but maybe with cleaning or cooking and these kinds of things. And then last, those who are totally dependent on other people. We are all on this scale. So the question to ask yourself is, first, where are you on the scale? And second of all, what direction are you headed in? Either down or up. And remember, the good news of tonight is we have a choice in that. Remember that SAID principle, specific adaptation do impose demands. If we work in certain areas and impose specific demands, our bodies, our minds will react. And so here's the great news. No matter where you are on this scale, you can go up. It's not too late. It really comes back down to what are your goals? So we started there. Let's end back there, which was what do you need to do? What do you like to do? What do you want to do? We talked about walking and dancing and travel and tennis, having more energy, being more positive, having brain health, managing pain. We have a choice in these. So hopefully that's what you can take away from tonight, that you've broken inertia just by coming here and learning that this is possible. Next Saturday, we'll be here again, as you've heard, and it will be lots more information. Great speakers, great sponsors, will be exercise demonstrations, free food, raffles, giveaways. It's going to be a great time. So please come and spread the word on that. And lastly, when you fill out this evaluation form, and please do give us some candid feedback. We want to know what we did well, what we could be improving. Also, again, we're offering that free fitness assessment. Nora will be involved with that. We can give you actual data on postural analysis, movement analysis. You'll have information you can take with you. You can take to your doctor if you want. It's completely free of charge. So check that off if you're interested. And if you got a lot out of tonight and would like to get on the mission with us and help spread the word that successful aging is possible, there's a space on here. If you know of a group, and it doesn't have to be a long talk like this, but if you know of a group, maybe it's a civic organization, perhaps a church or a company that would like to have this kind of information shared by myself, Dr. Ken. We've got several other people, nutritionists, physicians, that would love to come and talk, no charge. So please make sure you mention that if you have something like that you could help us share the word with. Well, with that, I'd like to thank you for coming. Hope you got something out of this tonight. We'll see you again next week on the 19th.